quarterback rating system, or the QBR for short. It's basically a system that was developed by ESPN to improve the official system of what's called the passer rating system that's used officially. Now, I'm a Jets fan, so it really doesn't mean anything to me. But my main point is that the QBR system does provide useful information on the quarterback's impact on the game. And my opponent's claim was the QBR system fails to provide useful information on the quarterback's impact on the game. So my first opponent's secondary claim was that it hindered the ability of fans, coaches, and players to calculate the stat. And my response to that is that the stat is useful to fans, players, and coaches. My opponent's first evidence on this point is what I believe is too all-encompassing. His statement said that most people don't understand what QBR measures, and assumes I think he assumes the majority of individuals who are interested in QBR don't understand it, a claim which, to be valid, he must know to be certain, which statistically is improbable. He also doesn't offer sound statistical or expert evidence to support his claim. My opponent's second supporting point for this claim is that the stat is important, which no one is arguing. He's saying that it's important to coaches, important to players, and important to fans who all love football, which that's not the argument. The argument for his claim, original claim, is that it hinders the abilities of fans, coaches, and players to calculate the stat. So I really don't know why he was stating why it was so important, the stat itself. And according to Brian Burke's article on advancednflstats.com, who's widely regarded to be an expert on how rating systems are made, the stat differs from the NFL passer rating for the better in the following ways. It includes sacks, running, fumbles, and all the other important things that traditional NFL passer rating doesn't. And it doesn't double count anything as the NFL passer rating does, such as completions. My second opponent's claim was that the rating of a clutch play is not reliable. And my response to that is the rating of a clutch play is reliable. Now, what's a clutch play? A clutch play is basically a play that happens in a high-intense situation, such as the clock's running down, the scores close together, etc. In an ESPN article, How to Identify NFL's Best Quarterback, the article quotes Don Smith, the creator of the official NFL rating system, as saying, some people call it a quarterback rating system, but that really is not what it is. It's simply a passing statistic, which I believe he implies that there needs to be more to be done to really adequately rate different quarterbacks. The need for a clutch factor in a rating is essential in adequately rating a quarterback's performance. According to that same article, the QBR formula takes into account down, distance, field position, time remaining, rushing, plus passing sacks, fumbles, interceptions, how far each pass travels in the air, from where in the field the ball was thrown, yards after the catch, drop balls, defense balls, where the quarterback was head, and etc. And those are just a small amount of things that it takes into account, which I believe all are essential in adequately rating how a quarterback does during the game. And my last opponent's claim was no adjustment of scoring based on opponent is unfair to quarterbacks. And my response to that is adjustment of scoring based on opponent is fair. I found no evidence supporting the fact that a quarterback whose performance that isn't embellished with spectacular catches or against a tougher defense than a struggling one receives a lower score, as my opponent said in his speech. I believe, in fact, that all the evidence seems to point in the other way, since the clutch factor would be more since the defense is tougher. Additionally, it also makes sense that the playing field will be leveled, since a quarterback who scores high one week against a struggling defense should score lower against a tougher, as well as the quarterbacks in every team. However, a particular quarterback is better than another, and he does do good. That's my phone. It's okay. And he does do good against a really good defense. He should be rewarded with that, and the QBR system does reward in that way. So, in conclusion, his claims are that the QBR hinders the ability of fans, coaches, and players to calculate the stat. My response to that was the stat is useful to fans, players, and coaches. Second claim was the rating of the clutch play is not reliable. I believe I gave adequate evidence that it is reliable, and that no adjustment of scoring based on the opponent is unfair to quarterbacks. I believe that adjustment of scoring based on the opponent is fair. Go Jets.
Sorry about that.
All right, well, I thought you had a nice explanation of the difference between the passing rating and the quarterback rating. It does get a little technical at times, and it's tough to explain, but I thought you simplified it pretty clearly, and you talked about why it is useful in these particular contexts. On that first point, it really sounds like you're making the argument that the advocate has made a sweeping generalization, and then you kind of get into some technical stuff on phrasing of the fallacy there. I think you don't want to go that direction. Keep things relatively straightforward. And, just explain. Basically, he's made this sweeping statement which ignores the fact that the people who are interested in this are the ones most likely to know about it. It doesn't have to be, this idea that it has to be 100% in order to reach a value. Don't go into that kind of stuff, because nobody is going to be doing math when you are giving an argument like this. They just need to know what the essential point of your argument was. And I thought you made that relatively clearly. I thought you also had a good argument that there's an irrelevant thesis in the presentation, and that whether or not it's important is not really the question here. It's whether or not it is understood and whether or not it is calculated correctly, which I think is fine. Then on the second point, the whole discussion of clutch and why it is relevant, I think is pretty good. I do think that you do make a big inference from the Don Smith quote there, and it's a reasonable inference to make that justifies then having these other factors included there. And I like the fact that you had the ESPN article to explain and justify that. On the third point on issues of fairness, I think one of the first things you ought to point out is fairness is not really relevant to the factual claim. The question is it accurate? And that's really the thing that we're looking at. Does it give us a way to efficiently measure the quarterbacks in comparison to each other from game to game? And I think that the argument that says that it does that, that's basically what you're looking for. And I'm sorry we imposed Sanchez on you. It's just tough luck. My daughter hates him because he left before he had to, and so
we don't need it.
there you go. That's the way it goes. He's not been a good professional quarterback. All right.